Here we go. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. After hours, we have earnings coming out on Tesla. I was curious to see how it performed over about an hour after the numbers came out because technically, if we look here at the numbers, we can see another slight revenue miss, but the company still reported almost 25.2 billion in revenue for the quarter. Estimates were 25.47 billion, so they missed that by about 1.1%, 288 million. The profitability rose significantly well in the quarter, and they were talking about doing some cuts, some slight restructuring over there on their end, but we can see the company EPS came in at 72 cents a share. Estimates were 59 and a third, so they beat that by almost 13 cents per share, or roughly 21 and a third percent. So Tesla Inc. obviously on the Nasdaq, TSLA. Obviously, there's a company that I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with, basically the leader in the EV space. And Musk recently spoke about the cyber taxi, robo taxi, whatever it is, Cybercab. And obviously, people are still pumped about the future of Tesla. So if you think back a couple of years ago when the EVs started to take off and people started to kind of flip the script on how they felt about Elon, because if you remember in the beginning, people were like, oh, no, it's not going to work. And then obviously he started pumping out the vehicles and people liked them and sales kept increasing. And then, of course, the company became wildly profitable. So now every, hedge fund out there is like, oh, Tesla is a great staple, a good growing stock. Musk is a genius. So now everyone kind of jumped on board. And my main point was that, in my opinion, I really don't know if that has shifted lately. Because I know I used to speak about how it was overvalued in the numbers, and some people mentioned in the Discord, oh, it used to be against Tesla. That was more in the moment to where the stock would rally from, this level up to like 300 after they missed earnings, right? So that's why the way I was looking at it as more of a short-term pullback, but that's not really what happened. And Tesla sometimes, in my opinion, does seem pretty difficult to time. But we can see that going back from this high in November of 2021, and then we pulled straight down here to the beginning of 23, and then since then we've kind of just been bouncing up and down. So kind of looks like we're in this long-term symmetrical triangle. Of course, the stock went through a split here back in August of 22. That was a 3-for-1 split. But earnings, as you see, were hit and miss. So coming out of the split, again, revenue light, you see an EPS beat. Revenue light, EPS beat. Nice beat on the top and bottom line. Then a miss, and then a double miss, and then a double miss, and then a miss on EPS and a beat on revenue, and now a beat on EPS and a miss on revenue. But again, see, it was kind of like slowly channeling downward. We had the big drop, and then we stormed back up here, April, May, June, when the company just came off 3 big misses back to back to back. So that's why, again, shout out to Godspeed in the Discord, because I know he said, he's happy I had a change of heart here now on Tesla, because in my opinion, I think it might be a pretty decent buy at these levels for the long-term growth that is potentially on the horizon. But again, just not necessarily that, I'm trying to over-explain myself, but again, we saw earnings misses, and we saw the stock staying up, and then we saw a big drop and the insta rebound. So that's why at the time I was a little bearish on Tesla. But as of late now, looking at the numbers, I have to say that this EPS surprise is pretty surprising. Not to repeat the word, but that's how it feels to me. And unfortunately, the way I'm looking at it, and let me know in the comments whether you kind of agree or disagree with my train of thought here, but now I feel that because Musk has picked a side and tied himself into Trump, now we may potentially have one of two situations. Because on the bullish positive side, we can say, well, Musk is a genius. Everyone bet against him. He defied all odds. He made a great company. Everyone loves him now. He's worth billions. The Cybercab, the robo-taxi, he's talking about building, humanoid robots. So my question is, the Cybercab and the, auto taxi and stuff, that should technically help Tesla as a business grow and generate more revenue. So just looking at it from that standpoint, in my opinion, could be a decent buy at these levels. And within, again, 2, 3 years from now, it could be even better. And people will be talking about looking out to like 2030, 2035, talking about the potential growth that you can see even more, right? So from this point, in my opinion, looking at the numbers with all of those new kind of innovative ideas and products coming out in by 2027, I think they said, then in my opinion, I do think this could be a decent buy here. But I bring up the political angle because, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but on X, I was seeing supposedly reports. I have to check how accurate it is, but supposedly there were reports coming out of like the UK that they were asking Harris to go after Musk and try to mess with like Twitter advertisers or something. I don't know exactly what is going on behind the scenes, but we know that a lot of people at the top don't like Trump, and now Musk is aligned with Trump. See where I'm going? So I'm not exactly sure if Harris was to win. The question would then be, do they start going after Musk? Because even if Tesla can still do kind of everything they said they were going to do as a business over the years, if Musk is for some reason out of there, or if now they like restrict Tesla from doing what they want to do, if anything like that comes up, then in my opinion, the stock is going to tank. If for some reason, I don't know, Musk finds himself behind bars or something, obviously the stock is going to tank. But you may also see the long-term resurgence as well. Because if you remember something similar with Apple, right? Who was that? Jobs. He goes down, the stock goes down. They bring in Tim Cook, and people are like, yeah, I'm sure he's, a decent guy, and I'm sure the company will be all right, but, we just lost, our main guy at the top. So the stock went into like this downtrend, and then over time, it was kind of forced back up to where it was, and obviously now has gone even higher because the company ended up delivering in the numbers. You understand what I'm saying? So if for some reason Musk runs into an issue, the stock will probably immediately tank in the short term. And then if they are able to continue to roll out, the Cybercab and whatnot without him, then it really shouldn't be a problem in the long term. But also on the flip side, if we get a Trump victory, then in my opinion, Tesla stock is probably immediately going to see a pop just because he's aligned with Trump now. But also, what was I going to say? Also, any new ventures should not run into any obstacles. You understand my point? So that's why, people are asking, well, it just went from 213 up to 233 here after hours. It's up 20 points, 9.5%. I just spoke all this time without even saying that, so my apologies. But the real question is, do you think it's a decent buy here in the 230s now? Earnings just came out. We just had a pop. What do you think? And that's the way I would look at it. Now, of course, it could run up to 250 by the time we go into elections, and, you might be paying a little more than you are right now. But in my opinion, I'd say that if you were a new investor and you have some cash on hand and you're considering taking a position in Tesla over the next 3-5 years, then in my opinion, I would personally feel much more comfortable after elections. That's the way I'm looking at it. But if we're talking in the immediate short term, I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there who jumped in shares and bought calls going into earnings. Boom, you're seeing a 9% pop. So obviously, congratulations to those people. And I guess if you wanted to wait for earnings to then jump in a call or jump in shares, then again, in my opinion, here you can see we broke out, but technically we've made kind of lower highs, and you can see we're making higher lows. So now we're kind of triangling coming out of the triangle, right? But technically, I mean, even if it does run up here to this fib, that'll be 256. So you can still definitely get some short-term bullish momentum coming out of earnings, even up here at 233. You can keep going into the 250s, and that would technically still make a lower high, right? And then it could start to come back down here, and it can meet up with that higher low. So in the short term, even if you happen to miss earnings, you may still have a play here. But yeah, it looks like it's run up right here. You can see it's like right getting near that moving average. It's right near this top trend line here, like looking like about 236 on my screen. So right now, a little under 234. So we have to see if the stock does A, run up to that level, and then B, will it just go up and get above 237, 238, and just continue upward to the next fib levels, right? So that, in my opinion, will kind of solidify the move technically in the short term. But again, in the long term, I know I just went off on a massive tangent, but in the long term, in my opinion, I might play it off elections. I might play it off elections. But if we come down here, we look at the numbers, we can see market cap right now, 682 billion. Obviously, stocks up after hours, so that's above 700 billion now. PE sitting here as of the close, 61.5. Obviously, could be viewed as a little high, but we know they're a leader in the space. Everyone loves Elon Musk. Tech is on the rise. Market's hitting highs. So, something like Tesla holding a 60 PE doesn't sound too crazy to me. We can see that the trend was a miss on the EPS side for the last couple of quarters. And now we have a nice beat here again. Estimates 59 cents. Company reports 72 cents a share. Nice 20+% beat there. The revenue has kind of been rocky and it has been hit and miss. But we're maintaining. We went down to 21 billion and then we popped right back up to 25, which technically was the most revenue over the last 5 quarters. Let me just see something. Yeah, 25.18. So, yeah, and we were at 23 Q3 of last year. So technically we're on the up and up. Again, the profitability swung up and then dropped back down. So people were kind of looking at the EPS side, wondering whether they can, weather the storm, so to speak, and pull themselves out of it. And again, this quarter we have a nice EPS surprise. So that, of course, technically added to the 9% pop. But over the years here, revenue growing very nicely, almost hitting 100 billion for 2023, and may hit that 100 billion mark going into 2024. We'll see. But profit margin technically up there to close out 23 at 15.5%, 15 billion. But I want to look at the overall numbers, but let's look at the earnings numbers, of course, the main reason why we did the video. Earnings unexpectedly increased year over year, while the EV manufacturer's revenue fell short. Adjusted earnings 72 cents, 66 cents a year ago. Revenue increased 8% to 25.18 billion. Automotive revenue edged 2% higher at 20.02 billion, while the energy generation and storage segment climbed 52% to 2.38 billion. So they continue to roll out those the supercharging stations. Tesla's operating margin grew 323 basis points to 10.8%, buoyed in part by lower cost per vehicle and higher deliveries. So that's obviously a recipe for success. However, reduced average selling prices of its models S, 3, X, and Y weighed down operating profitability and consolidated revenue. The company this month posted third quarter deliveries of 462,890 vehicles, up sequentially and annually, but missing the Street's Whisper numbers at the time. Ooh. In addition, Tesla's recent We Robot event lacked key details and updates, leaving some analysts disappointed. Well, I mean, in all seriousness, it is technically like, a new sector and a new business you're getting into if you're going to start building robots. So in reality, I do kind of have to lean with Musk here because you're introducing something new, right? And you're going into a new business, a new venture. Wow, there's like a crew of like 40 guys on quads zipping down the road right now for some reason. But if you're, venturing into that new business, then in my opinion, I would say you may want to take the strategy of kind of under promise and over deliver, if you will. And, let's just, slowly keep everyone updated with what's going on And then, before you know it, we're going to be moving along even quicker than everyone anticipated, and we're going to get closer and closer to that robotic reality. You understand what I'm saying? So right here in the moment, again, this probably isn't the number one priority, but does definitely seem like a cool venture. And right now, supposedly, some analysts are disappointed. They got a lack of details. I don't know. In my opinion, not really a big deal, but what are you going to do? Tesla said late Wednesday that it expects, quote, slight growth in vehicle deliveries this year compared with prior expectations for vehicle volume to possibly be, quote, notably lower annually. Quote, preparations remain underway for our offering of new vehicles, including more affordable models, which we will begin launching in the first half of 2025. Despite sustained macroeconomic headwinds and others pulling back on EV investments, we remain focused on expanding our vehicle and energy product lineup, reducing costs, and making critical investments in AI projects and production capacity. So obviously they're speaking highly about themselves. I just want to see if net income 2.2 billion, 17% increase from a year earlier, lifted in large part by higher sales of regulatory credits to other automakers and the strengthening of Tesla's energy business. Global deliveries also rose, helping to boost revenue by 8%. Closely watch operating margin, yes, was up. Tesla handily beat expectations on the EPS side. Said it recognized its second highest quarter of regulatory credit revenue, which comes from other automakers buying them to keep up with emissions requirements. Its energy business also stood out, helping to offset a decline in selling prices for many of its models. Tesla core auto business remains a focus. He's betting on AI robotics. Company said it plans to spend more than $10 billion on CapEx, capital expenditures, this year as it expands its data centers and takes other steps to improve software core to Musk's autonomous driving future. Earlier this month, during a splashy party, Musk showed off the vision, revealing two fully autonomous vehicles, the Cybercab, a gold two-seater with butterfly wing doors, and the Robovan, a 20-seater Art Deco-style bus. Musk said the Cybercab could be available to customers for less than $30,000, with production starting by 2027. So that's why, as this news comes out, we're almost ready to start producing the Cybercab. The stock will probably gain momentum, right? When it comes out, we're starting to produce the Cybercab. That'll be another catalyst that'll push the stock up, right? So that's why I'm saying, over the long term, it seems like they're able to maintain the amount of revenue that they're bringing in while still expecting even more revenue moving forward. And of course, rolling out autonomous vehicles, trying to make the vehicles cheaper and more affordable, and of course maybe robotics down the road. We don't know. So that's why when we look at that type of innovation that could potentially be coming under the umbrella of the Tesla business, then again, 3 years from now, 2027, if you're still looking for that Tesla growth, that's why I say, in my opinion, it really does seem like it's almost definitely there, although nothing's guaranteed, of course. But in my opinion, I'd wait for the Trump victory to really secure the investment, if you will. But despite the showmanship, investors were disappointed by the lack of details. Again, what is this? Around the Cybercab and a forthcoming driverless taxi service that would use the fully autonomous car. Wall Street is also clamoring for more information about the rollout of new models in the near term, including a low-price electric vehicle aimed at broadening Tesla's appeal. Uh-huh. Huh. Timeline for low-cost EVs. Growth in vehicle deliveries. There was something else I read. Here we go. The company's cost of good sold per vehicle. So what it cost them per vehicle, $35,100, is its lowest ever. So this is why you're still seeing a positive reaction after hours, even though some people who may have jumped on puts may have said, oh, the company missed on revenue again. Their earnings have been, dismal the last couple of quarters, but the stock keeps going up. That was kind of the thinking and the reasoning I had behind it. But something like this, in my opinion, I think actually may have supersede the EPS surprise, or excuse me, vehicle deliveries going up when they thought they were going to go down. Obviously, that helps, but bringing the cost, quote, to its lowest ever, I mean, that's a pretty big feather in the cap. That's the way I'm looking at that. Third quarter deliveries totaled 462,890, up 6.4% year over year, 4.3% quarter over quarter. Production was 469,796 units in the third quarter, up 9.1% year over year and 14.4% quarter over quarter. Tesla produced its 7 millionth vehicle on October 22nd after the end of the third quarter. Company said Cybertruck production increased sequentially and hit a positive gross margin for the first time. Excuse me. Positive gross margin for the first time. So if you really look at it from a business lens, this company is reporting some huge positives here this quarter. Tesla reported 6.9 gigawatt hours of storage deployed in the third quarter, up 75% year over year. Tesla ended the third quarter with 6,706 Tesla supercharger stations, up 20% year over year. Company ended with cash, $33.6 billion. Tesla's balance sheet denotes $183 million in digital assets, which could include the company's Bitcoin holdings. Yes, that's another little feather in the cap that Tesla has. Little Bitcoin in their wallet. A recent report linked Tesla's Bitcoin holdings to being moved to new wallets after the quarter concluded on September 30th. The next quarterly report could show whether the company sold any of its Bitcoin holdings. Okay, I guess we can keep an eye on that. Tesla said it remains on track to launch more affordable models in the first half of 25, so that's basically within the next 6 months. The Tesla Semi-Factory remains on track with builds to start by the end of 25. The company once again reiterated it is between, quote, two major growth waves of the Model 3 Y platform and the next generation vehicle platform. Quote, despite ongoing macroeconomic conditions, we expect to achieve slight growth in vehicle deliveries in 24. Company said it remains committed to expanding its vehicle and energy product lineup, despite other companies pulling back on EV investments. Tesla said it has sufficient liquidity to fund its product roadmap. So, just seems, again, like we have a lot of good news here, and, a slight revenue miss is just being overlooked right now. Cybertruck, again, a lot of people were bashing it, saying it looks silly, who's going to want one of those, and, now they're saying, hey, listen, sales numbers keep climbing, a gross margin percentage now positive on the project, right? This is nothing but positives. A lot of positives here. Again, they were saying that, oh, the cars are too expensive, and now we're making it a priority to make them more affordable. So, really, if you think about it, one of the main concerns that a lot of these analysts had against Tesla is, well, it may kind of start to dwindle away over the next 6 months, 8 months. Right? They were saying they might see stagnation and continued decreases in demand, and they're saying they saw a slight increase. Cost of goods sold down. I think that's huge, in my opinion. I think that's huge. But, yeah, a lot of stuff still on the horizon for Tesla, and that's why, again, to reiterate, wow, stock just ran even more, and as we see, got up now above that 20-day moving average, above that top trend line that we were looking at, 237, while we were reading the article. Now we're up to 239, and it's up over 25 points right now after hours, almost 12%. Let everyone know Tesla raging. But right now, the Raging Cajun up about 12% after hours, 239, again, above this top trend line. So, as we said, if we do happen to, let's draw a trend line right now, 271, across there, boom. So, about, you could see about maybe 262 potentially, very high 261s. So, that's why I was saying this run up to this fib right here of about 256 really shouldn't be an issue. That is probably going to happen in my opinion. So, could pause for a day after the big run up, but if you did want to potentially jump in, I would probably agree with that in the short term. But look at the numbers here. This is what I wanted to show as well. I mean, the company said what? They got 33 billion in cash on hand. Even though this is showing about half that. But, I mean, debt technically climbed over the last year. You can see 5.8 billion up to 8 billion, 10 billion, 12.5 billion. But again, technically, in my eyes, that kind of seems like a drop in the bucket, still outweighed by cash. We can see assets heavily outweighing liabilities in both the short and the long term. So, we have excess of cash based off debt of what? Even 15 billion, you want to call it 20 billion. Equity consistently climbing here quarter over quarter, nothing but green across the board on the balance sheet. We can see equity up to over 67.25 billion. So that's what I mean. Just cash, just equity, I mean, you're talking, 90, close to 100 billion. Book value climbing up. Look at this. A year and a half ago, it was $14. Now it's up to, as of last quarter, it's at $21. So the book value per share is up 50% just over the last 18 months. Company's growing like a weed. And again, if we take those numbers, 90, 100 billion, and now we mix it with these numbers, you're talking a profit on top of almost 97 billion. So that would put you at like positive 110 billion plus this puts you close to like 200 billion fair value in my opinion. Right now, market cap before the pop, 682 billion. Now, probably up to what? 3/4 of a trillion. It's probably up to 750 billion and change right now. And that's still kind of only trading 3.5 times quote unquote fair value. So, of course, you could look and say, wow, it's so much higher than the book value. Wow, the PE is up in the 60s and the 70s. It's due for a pullback. That's kind of understandable. But I think that just at the rate at which this company is growing, and in my opinion, how healthy the numbers look, now we've gotten to the point where I used to say, like during the lockdowns when Tesla was really raging, I remember it went up to like, 1,200 something a share. It was showing us 414 on the chart, right? But that's because they did a 3-for-1 stock split. So it was up at 1238 or whatever the heck it was. And at the time, those numbers weren't matching up with the stock price. So that whole time, I was saying the stock was overvalued. And if you go back to that time, what have we been doing? As we said, we were beginning to channel down, and then we had the big drop going into 23, and we even came back up, but continued to make lower highs and are continuing to channel down. And what did I always used to say about these companies? When you pump them too high too quick, you may get to a point where even if the company continues to beat earnings, it's going to continue to drop down and consolidate, come quote unquote back to earth, back to reality. And then when the numbers meet up with the value and it's no longer viewed as overvalued, it will eventually be viewed as fair valued or undervalued. And that's when it takes the next rage and leg higher and really explodes to even further uncharted waters and higher highs. So that could potentially be on the horizon here. Again, if we do want to extend this out, if we kind of say that, again, we'll have a pop up, but then come back down and we'll stay in this long-term triangle, then you can see that technically we can remain in this range going into January of 25 and potentially even the April quarter of 25 as well. But again, that's when they said that they're going to start to, ramp up lower cost vehicles and whatnot, right? So that could also be the catalyst to help explode it out of the triangle. Obviously, if you're trying to take a position and build a position, then you would kind of want it to stay in this range. And so you can continue to buy shares every week or every month, or, whenever you do a job and get some cash on hand. So you would want it to stay in this range. But again, looking at the numbers, I mean, the cash outweighs the debt. The equity is growing very well. Book value per share is climbing with it. Revenues being maintained. The company profitable. Again, in the numbers, I personally put fair value. I think we said around like 200 billion, and market cap after this pop again 700 billion and change. So trading technically, in my eyes, a little less than 4x fair value. For last year, again, about 100 billion in revenue, so we're trading a little over now 7 times yearly revenue. So that's why, again, depending on how an analyst might look at it, 7 times revenue could be viewed as high, 60 PE, 70 PE could be viewed as high, right? So that's why the run may be short-lived. But again, in the long term, I will drive it home. I don't care. In my opinion, I would personally wait to see who really wins this thing. And then depending on whether it's Trump or Harris, that may kind of dictate where money may flow over those next 4 years before we have another election. And I said in older videos, under Biden, just like it was under Obama, I said last time a lot of stocks kind of remained stagnant and tech was the lone winner. And of course, tech technically is up higher than everything else. But the difference now under this administration was the fact that we printed so many new dollars. So we devalued the currency, and that caused that kind of reverse market crash, also market rage, over the last 3.5 years. Again, markets up roughly 50% just over the last 3.5 years. And those were from highs as well, coming off of the Trump administration. So that's why, again, it may be kind of iffy to literally try to predict what is going to happen moving forward. But with something like Tesla, again, in my opinion, I think it comes down to who wins this election. But going into the earnings here, we had the RSI down here in the 30s. Obviously, it's up higher now. The stock right now, 239.5. So technically, we are above the 50-day moving average and the mid-Bollinger Band as well. And you can see top Bollinger Band up here. This will curl, so that'll become probably around 270. But again, technically, if we're making lower highs, then we may be looking at about 260 when we run into a slight sell-off. But MACD probably going to cross to the upside. That's going to help momentum. That's why I'm thinking maybe like that 256 level we were looking at. That might be the next stop over the next week or so. MACD technically crossed to the downside on the weekly, but now, boom, we have a big pop coming out today. RSI, basically middle of the road, 49. Now that is going to run up, of course, but you can see as well, top Bollinger Band 264 with that lower high in the low 260s. I think, in my opinion, that's the next stop. It's also above that, 239. So we're also above the 200-day moving average now on the weekly of 236.20. So that's why, I'd say, in my opinion, probably a run up to that fib of at least 256, if not back to this trend line of 261, I think it was. But yeah, that's how I feel about Tesla right now. But I know they reported earnings. Someone mentioned it in a Discord, so I said, you know what, let me jump on, do a quick Tesla update, even though you guys know I hate talking about a lot of the trending stocks, believe it or not. But pivot points, next pivot point, 245.38. So that may immediately be the next stop. As we open tomorrow, stock still climbing, approaching 240 right now after hours, up over 12% as we speak. But yeah, 245.38, next pivot point on the daily. And we got some tightening. So yeah, we're above the moving average. And again, on the weekly here, you can see next pivot point 331. Even if you go to previous pivot point, you're looking at it looks like about maybe like 310 or something. So we would need to break out of this triangle and this newer triangle, right? If we go from here, low 182 on the dot, up to there, and now we have a pop here, right? So we need to kind of stay above the top line of this triangle while staying inside of this triangle, while potentially breaking up and out, in order, in my opinion, in order to see 330. Right? And I know that may have been a lot for you, but if that didn't make sense, I understand. But that's the way I'm looking at it. And you can see again from 22 down to the drop in 23. We had the big run up here. It was overextended coming out of the lockdowns, goes into a big sell off, drops into 23, and you can see has a nice 2023, but tightening, right? Look at how flat it's gotten, really, compared to the swing up and then down that it had, right? And this is what I mean. This is why we're in this little tightening triangle, and I do like it, I will say. I do like it in the numbers, even though I bashed it in the past. But again, that was for the short term off previous earnings. But I like it in the numbers, and if it, I know you all want it to explode because you love it, but again, if we turn around and let's say the business just remains the same and they're doing what they're doing, if you turn around in April, May, June next year and it hasn't broken out and you're getting impatient and you don't understand why, in my opinion, that is when you continue to hold, because that is when we'll be approaching the apex potentially. And that's where the breakout up to 300 plus may happen. So obviously it's a big name in the space. I'll try to do updates, along the way since then, and we'll see if it stays here, if it comes back in here, if it just breaks up over the next 2 weeks and climbs up here, right? So we'll do updates on it, but right now in its current state, in my opinion, that is pretty much everything I have to say about Tesla, and I'm sure you really appreciated this very long video. And I'll end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But of course, more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, and they are very uncertain. So I do want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.